It's very important to understand, especially from the business component, how your employees are feeling, what they're thinking, what they want. And so that could be anything from, we're always going to hear about, pay me more.
Sure.
We're always going to hear that. Let's dive deeper into what development opportunities are there. Do I feel like I belong here? Am I heard? Am I seen? Is there a level of trust? And we need to talk about it. We also need to collect data on that. We can't run our businesses without our people.
Welcome to High Octane Leadership with Donald Thompson. This season, we're diving deeper with more solo episodes, where I'll share the experiences that have led to recognition by EY, Forbes, Fast Company, and others. Not as a boast, but as milestones on my entrepreneurial path. From growing multi-million-dollar firms to successful business exits and building high-performance teams with a global perspective. I'll reveal the insights and strategies from my journey and share them with you so that we can win together. Alongside these solo episodes, we'll have industry visionaries and thought leaders, and we'll explore effective leadership. Ready to empower your leadership journey with real success stories? Let's embark on this transformational journey together. Welcome to another episode of High Octane Leadership. I'm here today with a good friend of mine and work colleague, Susie Silver. And Susie is a phenomenal workplace consultant. And she focuses on things in the area of psychological safety, basically building a better workplace for all, really at the intersection of business and building human capital to create that strategic outcome for your business. One of the things that we're going to do today is we're going to talk about how do we really think about workplace wellness and health in the construct of business value. And I've been a fan of Susie for many years, and the opportunity to work together is phenomenal. So Susie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
One of the things that I want to jump into is I want to give you the opportunity to just talk a little bit about your background, a little bit of what brought you into the corporate space as a trainer and a consultant and educator so that our audience can get to know you. And then we'll kind of jump into some of the details that we want to talk about today.
Yes. Well, it's been 5 years. Just a couple weeks ago, we've been together, which is amazing to think about. The journey is an interesting one. I actually have a fine arts background. It's fun to tell the story of how did you get here? But I have a fine arts background and a background in education. And so early in my career, I really liked leadership and understanding what that meant within the classroom and within the school setting, and well into that teaching career, which wound up being almost 18 years. It's interesting to say that too.
That's awesome.
I started multiple businesses, so I'm a serial entrepreneur, as I know I'm in good company there.
Good company.
Some businesses on the art side, and one in particular, I started consulting in the educational and corporate space for inclusion, diversity, equity, inclusion, LGBTQ plus inclusion, one from spurs from my own experiences, and then learning more outside of myself. And at the time that business was growing and also the conversations were growing, I met you and the early team from the diversity movement. And we joined together. And one of the things that brought me into the corporate space more formally was this transition onto the team, because I remember us talking about we can do the work bigger together, faster together. And to me, that was mission aligned. It was driven by helping people, helping business. I love the balance of business and people. Don't shy away from that conversation either. So it's been an interesting journey. That's the quickest way I could say that whole story.
That is one of the things I recognized when we were chatting with Susie many years ago. There's a lot of folks that are really creative, but can't translate into business outcomes. And one of Susie's superpowers, and I've seen her do this in boardrooms, in C-suite, in leadership settings, is really to take the ability to look at the human-centric side of the work we do, but really translate that into business results. And so, Susie, I wanted to give you some space. One of the things that we were talking about in preparation was some of your superpowers. So talk to us a little bit about what it means to you to translate human insight into strategy.
It's very important to understand, especially from the business component, how your employees are feeling, what they're thinking, what they want. And so that could be anything from, we're always going to hear about, pay me more. We're always going to hear that. Let's dive deeper into what development opportunities are there. Do I feel like I belong here? Am I heard? Am I seen? Is there a level of trust? And we need to talk about it, we also need to collect data on that. Yeah. We can't run our businesses without our people, plain and simple. And so we have to understand from the analytical side what's going on there, even from the application process. So not just when we have internal employees, but people wanting to work at your organization. What does your website look like? What do you have to offer as a culture? People more and more, which we've seen for many years now, want a place that aligns with their values and provides career opportunity. So we have to understand the holistic process from beginning to even exit, what's happening. And so how we translate that is into, people are feeling there's nowhere to develop or maybe get a promotion or get training. Well, that's from data and insights. We can help that in your business, which links to retention, which reduces your risk, which reduces the money spent to replace people. That's a very business-oriented conversation too. People want to stay because they feel like they belong and they feel like there's opportunity here. So it has to be, it is an art form. I truly believe it's an art form using data, both qualitative and quantitative, to create that process of sentiment.
I appreciate that answer very much. One of the things that people talk about a lot is the word psychological safety and creating that space for people to be and feel seen and heard. As a business leader, when you're doing all you can to create that space, why do sometimes I can feel as a business leader, and I want you to unpack this a little bit, that people don't take that space, but you have, right? We've worked together a lot of years.
Yes.
So what are some of the characteristics that allow people to really actually lean into their role when that space is trying to be created for them?
Right. Communication is key. And that's not going to happen easily overnight. As you said, we early on, we knew each other, but we didn't work with each other yet.
That's right.
And so you have to build a foundation of trust. So trust and communication and psychological safety, those are components that have to exist. So communication is key, learning communication styles. When is the best time to communicate with you? And that's from both sides. I know you are up early. So am I. We've learned that. So it's okay. We have realistic boundaries in some of our communication. You can text me. I can text you at 7 o'clock in the morning. And that does not work for every team.
That's right.
Nor should it work for every team. And then there's a respectful boundary of, that I'm chaotic at the end of the day because of my kids' activities. And that seems outside of business right now. That seems outside of business. That's the humanistic component of respect, of the trust, of the communication. My style, generally, we can go email to email. If I want feedback, we're talking about a big idea, something that's really important to our business, I want it face to face. And usually so do you.
That's right.
And so that takes that time and its intention and effort. And I know, especially that mid-level manager we've talked about, everybody's feeling that pressure from everywhere, that it's hard sometimes to make that time and to take that time. But the foundational components of communication and building trust and knowing what trust is to each other, and that can be from practice and that can be from failure sometime, and learning and getting up and trying that again between leaders and employees and colleagues. That really helps that psychological safety to end to your question and point. All of that makes me feel like I can say, hey, Don, I don't align with that. Here's why. I know that if I say I don't align with this, for us and knowing each other, I need evidence. I need evidence. Enough. And that's fair. That's fair as well from my standpoint. I want to be part of a solution. I want to be part of something that helps us get to the next stage. And again, that's taken us time. It takes anybody time. And I think there's also a notion of, I'm going to come in and it's all going to be okay.
Right, there's
you have
magic.
to build that. But psychological safety really at its core is that you can speak up. You can speak out. You are not going to have retaliation for that. In fact, it will be welcomed. You will be heard. And there can still be disagreement. There can still be some emotion there. We can work through that.
No, I really appreciate that answer. I think one of the things I would say to extend it, and I appreciate the component where you said, in getting to know me, when you have a concern or you disagree with an idea or a direction, what's the evidence? What supports that point of view? One of the things that I see as a business challenge is a lot of the education is about what the manager or the leader should do different. How are we educating our employees, our team members, to own the space they have, right? And I don't think a lot of times we trust our teams or empower them enough with the education of how to communicate in the language of leadership, right? So they communicate from their perspective, they share how they feel, but their leader is measured in financial terms.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? So immediately there's an unintentional disconnect in that conversation, but the leader's responsibility is to share what they need to actually make a change. And that is where you described, bring me how you feel, bring me what you're seeing, but also bring me the business case of how it's going to move the business in a positive direction. And so I appreciate that.
That's exactly right. And actually, a little tip, one of the things I do with leaders, especially in the employee sense, is to the empowerment and to trust themselves first and foremost. And it is hard to bring something up to a superior, so to speak, right? And you're saying in that business sense and what they have to deliver on as the manager or supervisor or leader. I think about the easy button, the red. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm going to say because I've used it as an example before. But to whatever level of leader you are speaking to as an employee, one, where are my emotions out? Check your emotions, not to disregard your emotions, just know it's self-awareness. That's a leadership component we talk about.
That's right.
In all sense. So where are you emotionally? What do you really want? What are you saying? What are you asking for? What do you need? What do you want to challenge? That's that evidence. And then map it to what's important to the leader. We need to know that as well. I know what's important to you, and that shifts. You know what's important to me. That shifts. We have to continue to communicate.
That's right.
And then it's like a little formula. I write notes, I type it up, and whether that is in an email or a conversation, it's then you can say, easy button, got you, Susie. We can do this. Or how about we shift this a little bit? So that formula has very much worked for employees as well as other leaders, because there's empowerment there and it makes sense. It's not so ambiguous.
Yeah. I want to give a real example of how this worked in practice between us. And then I also want to give Susie and the team a little shout out. And so maybe it was 3 months ago, Susie and I had a one-on-one. We're a part of the Workplace Options Center of Organizational Effectiveness. And Susie had a new idea of how to package a new offering for our clients. And it was basically creating micro courses or micro training workshops, right? Is that the right way that we described it? And so she said, we want to pitch you on this idea. I said, okay. I said, give me a thumbnail, right? Because as a leader, before I'm going to take an hour meeting, right, I want to know that like this matters in some way. This is significant. And Susie basically described everyone's so busy that we're finding that our longer form courses are not being as adopted as much because we need to create training that works in the flow of a busy professional's day. And I said, okay. And she said, Don, I think this is a significant financial opportunity that should be able to get to 7 figures if we do it right. I said, go on. I said, go on. And so we had that mini conversation. I said, all right, send me what you got. And then we booked a meeting and you and several colleagues walked me through it. Tell our audience about the idea. These micro training courses, you came up with it. You all have implemented a handful of places. I'm really excited about raising the profile of it as we've done some tests and seen it work really well. But I'd like for you to share that with the audience because we can bring it from idea, mini conversation, to where we had some pitch meetings. I then shared that with some folks that I'm working with at different levels in the company. And now we're in motion with marketing this new idea. And so before I give you the mic, what I want to share with the audience is this. What if I hadn't created an environment where Susie and team could bring us new information, new ideas that we could up or down? I potentially would cost myself millions of dollars in revenue because I didn't create the environment for people to share what they're thinking. And so, Susie, give our audience a little taste of what you all came up with.
So this idea concept started in August 2024. And with one of our partners, clients, we wanted to reimagine what their education looked like. And live facilitation, for years, as we know, has followed the same format. And so we did talk about what are your pain points? You know, that's an important question for me to ask as a consultant. What's going on great and what's not working so well? And this historically as an organization has great culture and people are eager to learn. the format wasn't working. So in collaboration, we came up with, what if we do a series? Now, with this particular first pilot, it was every Monday morning in the month of August. So there are 4 sessions, 30 minutes. Let's come up with the different topics and just be quick about it. I love to talk, so we both do. But
we share that.
let's be quick about it. Let's introduce a topic, have some information, have an interactive activity, have the chat open. This is all virtual, and interact as a community, and then we can implement right away. That was a directive from me, and also the client agreed. So we piloted, very well received, high attendance, great sentiment of, wow, I walked away with something that was in my workflow. So the half an hour was in the workflow, which was a big thing. And then we measured with them, their belonging scores increased as an organization based on the series. We said, we're on to something. August of 2025, we increased to 8 sessions, Mondays and Fridays. And we're thinking, great, but it's kind of a lot. Over 70% of their entire workforce attended these sessions, including their CEO. And so we have actual data which helped, which the facts for Dawn that I presented. Hey, we're onto something here. And it was expanding the topics. The format was working. Let's maybe spice it up with some more activities and some more interaction. And what came about was then this just feeling inside, right? Thus, that we innovate, we know, and we're working on something that's special.
That's right.
And that's when it wasn't time yet to bring it to you. I dropped some notes here and there, sure. Maybe, just, hey, this is what's going on. And at this time, we got the team together and said, we really need to, present this to you. So it's been very fun. The reaction's been really great from the people that are receiving it. That's the point. And it's affecting their business. It's affecting the retention. It's affecting the belonging. And that we know affects the business in a positive way. And now we're on 2026 August. They're doing 9 sessions. So
that is awesome. I really love that story for a couple of reasons. One, in the environment business leaders are in, if you're asking a business leader to have their staff spend 2 hours, 4 hours, 2 days in training, that's a pretty significant ask, both in hard costs for what that training would cost, and then also moving people away from their day-to-day tasks. But business leaders, by and large, really understand that culture and communication and ongoing education are important. But if you can give them something in a bite-sized, kind of snackable level, it allows them to see the ability to implement it faster. And so we move from talking about education to testing it. And then once you test something, then the data and the feedback stands on its own. And so one of the things as we talk to you all and we all grow together in high octane leadership, it's really about how do we implement leadership principles in the realities that we're all dealing with. And that means we have to introduce new knowledge in smaller increments so that people can really manage that attention. And then the second thing that is really important is before we try to roll something out, let's pilot stuff. It's not rocket science. Right. One of the things that people will do is and this is just a pet peeve of mine, people will debate and have these who can be the smartest in the meeting moments. Let's not debate what we can test. Let's just run some tests and then let the data show us the way. I want to pivot a little bit from the corporate to the family, and it blends back to business, but you're a mom. Mm-hmm. You have 2 boys, super active, all the different things that I know. How is it being a parent in these crazy times, right? Because, we can't be naive that when we ask people to show up as their best self at work, and people are parents, people have partners, people have health things that they may be working through, people may be in their first job and they're learning how to be a professional. There's all kinds of anxieties. We're at war. There's an AI tsunami. I could list all the different things we're working through. How are you managing? And then how are you helping others manage that you're teaching and coaching?
Yes, that's a great question. And one I'm sure we could talk about for a long time. It's day to day, honestly. It's one in the context of being a parent, and my kids are about to be 12 and 8. So yes, very active. We're We're always out and about, which is great and actually a gift, I don't take lightly. And, something that myself and my spouse, we talk about is right now in 2026 and then 2025, things have not slowed down for a long time, many years.
That's right.
And we're somewhat in, and not to say this naively, because I know there's some repeated patterns of things historically, we are seemingly in an unprecedented time again, thinking about COVID hitting when our kids were even younger and saying, well, where's the book for that? Where's the playbook? Where's the help for that? What do we do? And navigating that with young children and figuring out how to keep them safe and how to keep them not protected again in some kind of naive way, but to also educate them of the world. And now, as that continued and alleviated a bit, the last couple of years, and right now especially, is very difficult. I have a child that's about to be 12 who's very aware of the world around him, asks great questions. We have very open conversations in our house, especially the line of work that I'm in. And so it's not new to have hard, important conversations. But again, we're finding ourselves without a playbook. The difference between right and wrong comes up almost every day in our house. And so how do we navigate? It is day to day. It is finding pockets of joy. It is taking time when we need time. This actually goes back, Don, to the conversation about psychological safety and trust in the workplace, because, we need flex. We need flex, meaning we need the flexibility as professionals right now, again, yet in a different way than happened. We're going to be flexible, and pivot was the word of the year in 2020 and 2021. I don't want leaders to forget about that. I don't want them to think that things can be as is, because we're not there. Your people are not there. Whether it's me as a parent navigating caretakers for elderly parents. I'm in the sandwich generation right now with elderly parents not even in town. And so going on as is and is just not possible. And now that doesn't mean, I always say this to leaders and I mean it, I'm not talking about lowering your expectations.
That's
you and I talk about this a lot. This is about that discipline and trust within your team and how to continue building those fundamental things within your team to say, you know what, you need maybe take today off or take 2 hours off, or why don't we as a team, we're going to shut down for 2 hours Friday afternoon. It can all wait. And when you actually demonstrate that as a leader, it gives permission to the team to say, oh, okay, I thought they were just saying that. No, actually, Don is telling me I'm offline this afternoon.
Yep.
And I'm getting very specific from the broad question.
No, I understand.
But it's
No,
bringing
good.
it really into the importance of, yes, as people, being seen as people first. And yes, I am an employee. I am at a great organization on a wonderful team I care about. And so I tell a lot of my own stories to the people I'm helping. So it goes to your question. Yeah. I try to use real world examples. I don't know it all. That's why we need different perspectives in the room to help us understand what we don't know, reminding ourselves we don't know what people are carrying unless they tell us. And actually, we will tell you as employees, meaning leaders, when we trust you.
That is,
it's a little bit.
No, I really appreciate that. I would say from my perspective, as we think about leadership, as we think about growing organizations, people will use the phrase, people are my most important asset, our people are where our secret sauce comes from. And all of these things are in corporate speak across the land, but we have to live that. And the reason we have to live that is twofold, right? One is the business value and one is the brand value, right? And what I mean by brand value is, as a business leader or as an organization, your brand is what measures, right, how you follow through on the promises you make, right? So if an organization, I'll use Elon Musk, for example, and he's not one of my favorite people, but I respect what he's done as a business leader. I respect what he's done as innovation, and he speaks his mind. When he went into Twitter and then called it X or whatever, he said, I don't want to hear about this DEI stuff. I don't want to hear about work-life balance. If you don't want to work 80 to 100 hours a week, just go ahead and quit. Now, that seems super harsh, super ridiculous, but it's honest. And then people made a choice if they want to be a part of that kind of organization. What I think is worse sometimes is when leaders think like that, but then their website talks about people first. Their website talks about people are our most important asset. We want you to come to us and bring anything to us, and they don't mean it. I actually prefer when people live their truth, and then people can decide if your organization culture aligns with where they want to be, where they want to work, where they want to build a career. And so I think it's really important for business leaders to be the person they say they are. And that also means when you make a mistake, when you have a misstep, that you own it, that you fix it, that you correct it. No one's looking for perfection, but we are looking for consistency, right? And that's what I try to model with my leadership, but more importantly, the people that I work with, that I coach, that I counsel, the clients that we have, is perfection is an unattainable thing, but you can keep your promises. And then if you cannot, then you do everything you can to fix it and own it and do better the next time. And so those are some of the things that I share. Question that I've been meaning to ask, and this is more on how do you learn and grow? And this isn't on the script, so take as much time as you want. What do you read? How do you learn? How do you take in information? Because one of the things that I know and I appreciate is Susie will always send me new insights, right? Like she'll say, hey, Don, I think you'd be interested in this. And she'll send me this white paper. Hey, Don, I think you'd be interested in this. Here's this article, right? And I love that, right? Like, because there's so much information out there. I really appreciate my colleagues and my friends that send me what to me is curated content, because they know me, they know my goals, they know who I am as an individual, and they've picked this for me. And I always read those things first. Talk to me a little bit about how you consume information, how you learn, how you grow and stay current.
Yeah, that's funny.
It's true though. Susie, you have lots of ideas.
Like you. Actually, I'm going to answer the question. Okay. Let me say about my ideas. And this is an example. I'm going to answer the question, but this is a great example of our relationship that's grown. Because when I first started on the team, I have a lot of ideas. I started many businesses. I got ideas every day. In fact, I get a certain look on my face at home, and it's like, what are you going to say now? Which business do you want to start today? And we actually learned I would come to you with 10 ideas, and you just, I see these. These are great. How about next time we bring 3, with the evidence? So I love that you said that. But that curation of information to send, it is important. The things I send you is different than somebody else and on the team. Sometimes this is business development. I'm sending it to all of our team. I try to consume in various places. It's mostly online, although right now I'm missing holding things, getting back to a magazine or getting back to a newspaper. I think especially in the last year or two, it's very hard to trust your sources. So what I would say, I'm not going to name specific names of sources I go to, but I do even more so now try to double, triple check items because I'm not sure, even in things I've trusted in the past, that I trust them anymore. And so my brother, which, he's in employment law, so that side of things is very important to me and interesting. So I'll get reports, that I trust this global law firm. I take from that source. I do a lot of online publications, and then I do double back and say, okay, what do I trust? What do I not trust? And then if I feel like it's valid, I'll send it along. I also, this year in consumption, I've had to limit my consumption. So it's not that my learning has slowed down. I just try to find different sources, not to give myself overwhelm, because that can get overwhelming in itself. But what am I trying to learn? So right now there's a lot on AI. I'm researching what I can learn on AI, on leadership development, organizational effectiveness. So for what I do every day, I consume to help me be better for, 1, myself, and 2, my family, of course, and then my job. We have to limit sometimes for our own health. And so I've put boundaries on times. There's certain things, I don't like videos of certain things. I won't listen because even the audio can be a little bit upsetting. And so then I tend to read articles more on something than listen or watch a video. So the learning occurs. My learning has shifted this year. And it's been structured in a way that makes me better and also keeps me healthy.
Good stuff. And I appreciate that very much. I talk to a lot of women leaders, and I hear things like, be your full self at work, take your agency, be bold. And I want your perspective on this statement. I think a lot of times women leaders are being lied to, because sometimes if you're being bold in the wrong setting, you get typecast. If you speak up in the wrong setting and you don't understand the power dynamic in the room, right, your boldness can be taken in a way that actually hurts your career. Am I wrong in thinking about it that way? How would you have me unpack that as a woman leader, as a perspective? I have a point of view, but I want to hear yours, right? Because sometimes I hear these buzz phrases and I'm like, don't do it that way, right?
Yes.
But I'd love your perspective.
Yeah, it's unfortunately true. I wish we could say things are progressed more so now, and they are in a sense, of course. That happens every day of, we hear, be your authentic self, be bold. I want to use your words, be empowered. And we say this a lot in our consulting of, we want everybody to bring their authentic self. So we can speak about women, which we will, and then think in the perspective of many other identities. Mm-hmm. We're a culture of bring your authentic self to work. That is easier said than done. And often, to a previous point you made, it is an unfortunate lie. Do not state that unless you are ready for it. That, and then I'm going to explain a little bit further.
I'm super
that
interested.
Is the statement there. And that right there for leaders, that's a great self-reflection and self-awareness exercise to do. And we could insert any type of statement or culture performance statement here. Be bold, be authentic, bring yourself. Am I ready for that? And what comes out of that answer? Why? Why not? What's coming up for me? Am I going to feel threatened? And yes, we are typecast as women of being difficult, of being too emotional, mm-hmm. of being distracted because we have so many other things. We are the best ones to hold all the things. And that is a biased statement. So I will say,
speak your truth. Listen.
I feel like and somewhere on a podcast a long time ago, somebody equated and spoke to me of like the NASDAQ ticker. That is what my brain is like every day. And that is not to discredit that other people's brains work like that. For women in business, women in leadership, it's going all day long. And we can hold a lot more than people think we're capable of. And that emotional sense comes up. So if that happens, right, if you are a leader in a room, and it goes back to what I said just a minute ago of, Susie's talking too much, or wow, she's real emotional today, or why is she's so difficult, or whatever it might be, that is so what's happening there? And it's a simple question of why? What's happening to me? What has happened before? And I'm distracted, so now I'm not listening to this person who very well will bring something valuable mm-hmm. to the business, to the team. And so that's how I work with a lot of leaders. We have to face a lot of perceptions, a lot of assumptions that happen. And so not only for yourself, the second challenge, when you observe it, interrupt it. And that could be a lot of times it's the interruption of women in spaces, being spoken over. Mm. Cannot tell you how many times I've been spoken over in my career. I'm not saying of our team, because we actually catch each other. Hold on a second. But it's if I was saying something and you interrupted me, okay, sometimes we're in a flow of a conversation, right? I know my team. But if it's hey, Don, Susie was saying something. Can we come? We're going to come back to you in just a minute. Mm-hmm. And sometimes leaders, CEOs, feel not empowered to do that. They don't know how to do it. It's in theory, oh, yeah, I would say something, but when it comes time, we don't. Or it's a side conversation. We just got out of that meeting. She was really emotional today. Actually, was she emotional or really passionate about what she was talking about? Because she cares about her team and business. And that's not confrontational. That's not highly emotional. It's, I'm going to break the cycle of what happens. So yes, does it happen? I wish it was different. It's what happens in the moment and then after that will actually change things for people.
I appreciate that very much, because I have a perspective, but I like to balance my perspective with insight from people that they're living that experience, right? And so I really appreciate that feedback. And I think, one of the things I'm working on in this particular topic and an article, but I want to take some of the hype terms, is what I'll call them, right? The pep rally leadership terms. And how do we actually execute those in practice? Because one of the things with underrepresented communities is we're not typically taught how to manage the power narrative in every meeting we're in. We're taught how to be an engineer. We're taught how to be in computer science, how to be in communications, all of the things. But we're not really teaching people how to manage that environment so they can really read the room, right? What things need to be said in the room, what need to be a follow-up email, what needs to be a personal sidebar conversation, and basically understanding the temperament and the tonality so that you can be effective, right? Being seen and heard is still a broad statement. So we need to narrow that down in our communication as people in terms of how do you be effective when you're talking with people that are not like you? How are you talking to people that have a different business goal than you? So you may have a goal as a corporation, but you've got different departments, different responsibilities, and how you get to that goal. Collaboration is another one of those big words, but what does that really show up? And to your point about when you see things, being able to call them out, it's really about how much do you care about your teammates so where you can do the financial engineering to grow your business and you can build your culture at the same time. I enjoy working with leaders that are chasing the ability to do all, that they're not just focused on the fiscal numbers, which won't be as enduring if you don't have the culture right, or people that over-index on the culture. How do you do both, and how do you manage those things? So as we land the plane, I could talk to you literally all day, but we got other things we got to get to. What would you like to share with our audience that I didn't ask as we have this platform together and talk about building culture and performance?
It's not so much about what you didn't ask. It's reiterating points about people are important. We know that. We need to continue to practice that. And as fast-paced as everything is in business, which we know, and I love a successful business, it is worthwhile to take the time to have these types of conversations, to define, even as you were talking just a minute ago about we don't know what collaboration means, define that as a team. Take the time. It doesn't have to be an hour. Take the time with intention to marry the culture and the performance and really define what that is and not to forget about it, because we're moving so fast in different places and we are distracted because of other things we've talked about. Yep. Taking that time and really understanding that all of us as humans right now, regardless of how you feel about anything, we're holding a lot.
Yeah, that's right.
And not to forget about that. Again, not to take away from performance, take away from the goals and the business outcomes, understand what it means to make all of that successful through your people. And just not to forget those items. So it's not so much what you didn't ask, it's reiterating those points because they're so important to business and people and this whole conversation.
One of the things as we end, and I really appreciate this conversation, is you don't have to choose between empathy and economics.
That's correct.
You can do both. And one of the things that I try to do and has helped me over my career immensely is I talk to a lot of really talented and bright folks. And I was talking to one of our partners this morning, and Eric at Alps that yes. works on our technology, our data analytics, and all the things. So Dr. Eric Surface, a great friend of ours in the organization. But he said something on a call we were on this morning as we were reviewing some data. He said, technology is changing at a faster pace than ever before. But the pace of human change is still the same. And you need to make sure you're balancing those things. And I thought that was very wise, very thoughtful. And one of the things that we're all striving to do is managing how we deliver a better workplace for all. And so, Susie, I'm very, very proud to be in business with you, partnering with you. We are now part of a much bigger organization at Workplace Options and launching the Center of Organizational Effectiveness together and having a great time doing that. But thank you for spending time on High Octane Leadership. And until next time, DT over and out.
Thank you for joining us on High Octane Leadership with Donald Thompson. Today's episode is a step in our collective journey towards leadership excellence. Remember, every story we share and every insight we gain is a piece in the puzzle of our leadership journey. For more insight and detail, hit the subscribe button so that we can stay connected. For deeper information and more episodes, go to donaldthompson.com. Continue to lead with vision and purpose, and until we meet again, embrace your role as a high-octane leader in the ever-evolving world of business.